I'll wait till I get my top hat and spats, and I'll do a little dance routine.
Okay, but have somebody video it and send it to me. But don't video it. For crikey now, you X sake, don't video it. Don't video it this way round. Video it this way round. You know, I hate vertical videos. It's the bane of today's society. Rant over. Okay, so Ford is
Who would have
pitching.
known?
Pardon me?
Who knew? Vertical video is the bane of society.
Yeah, bane of society. Absolutely. Yeah. All right.
You
Okay,
heard it
so
first here on Talking Niagara.
yeah, in my words, will it will be the death of society. You
That's
know.
right.
Anyway, and not some stupid plan by Donald Trump. There we go. Okay. So Ford pitches an ambitious energy plan in the effort to stave off Trump tariffs, because he's basically looking at, because we've got a lot of energy. He's basically saying, look, we've got energy we can sell you. Let's make sure we've got a situation whereby we can work together to get this done. We're building new infrastructures, new small modular nuclear reactors, etc., etc. We can put these to good use for America.
I think that this was a forced plan anyway. So that the idea that he's pitching it as a way of staving off Trump tariffs, I don't think that's entirely true. I think probably what he's done is he's taken the plan that he already has, and we've already talked about this.
Yep.
About the nuclear plants expanding and an open-mindedness to the smaller modular nuclear plants, and some of the slowpoke nuclear facilities that have been on the books for many years, but now finally are being put to use. First of all, the first thing I was very surprised about is we had enough energy that we could sell it to the United States. So we could sell enough power to the United States.
But we've been selling the US.
Wait a minute.
Selling the US.
Wait. That it wasn't long ago that we did not have enough energy, that we were the ones that were importing it from the States, particularly on summer days and stuff like that, when we needed more energy coming in from the United States. And that was when our coal plants were still going. So the fact that we have to come to the point where we have a surplus of electrical energy is the first thing that surprises me. And the second thing that surprises me is that nuclear power, which is not the cheapest, it is now going to be available to supply the American market from Ontario. So those are the first two things I'd like to point out. It wasn't long ago when we did not have enough power. Now we have a surplus of power. It was a surprise to me that we did sell electric power to the United States. Now, of course, what he's done is he's just taken these plans that were already in the books and said they're going to fast track them and make extra power available to the Americans as part of a good neighbor thing, something we can sell and give to you, something you need.
I think there will be a lot of people out there who will be a little bit anxious about fast tracking anything nuclear.
It's not. Mike Cushman says small modular will be our demise. It's 7 years to become nuclear waste. Well, it could be. I don't know what they plan to do with nuclear waste, and that's been an issue all along. However, the larger nuclear reactors, when they talk about fast tracking, they don't mean put it up really fast. They mean to get past the planning stage and all that other stuff.
I know that. Yeah. But you see, sometimes what I mean by the problem with fast tracking is that sometimes the careful planning is what catches the problems.
Well, it has been carefully planned over and over and over again. And that's the argument I'll make here. Because there has been such resistance to nuclear power, that the plans that were in place back in the 80s and 90s that got shelved are brought back out. So a lot of the work has already been done, and it's probably been done more than once. So it's just getting the shovels in the ground.
Well,
So
yeah, and essentially North America went kind of got very nervous about the use of nuclear energy, particularly the US, after the incident at 3 Mile Island, didn't it?
3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and Fukushima all scare the crap
Yeah,
out of people.
yeah, absolutely, they did, and with good reason.
Yeah, but it's also interesting to note that France never did fear nuclear, and the 70% of their power is generated 70 more, maybe more than 70% of the power is generated by nuclear. Um, Germany needs gas and coal from of all places Russia, because it shelved its nuclear reactors. So what Trump or what Ford is going to do here is offer this power to the United States. However, they have a lot of capacity for power too, which is another interesting point that's not well explained, and you have to really kind of dig a bit. They may be supplying the power to the United States because it's not green power per se, but it certainly doesn't pollute. And in the United States, they have a big problem with pollution because they are so reliant on coal plants. There are many more times Michigan and New York State. They get over half of their power from coal. So
Yeah, and actually you can see it dotted around the landscape if you're going through the United States. So you can see these coal-fired and oil-fired power stations dotted around the United States if you know where they are, right?
That's right. So maybe part of the appeal is, look, we can send you power that's not putting carbon into the atmosphere. Although I don't think Trump really cares about how much carbon goes into the air.
Yeah, he doesn't care really about that thing. But nuclear, I'm sure cost-effective nuclear energy is something that will be of interest. And the whole question about these small modular, they've been talking about these for a few years. They're supposed to be better than the Fukushimas, all right? Because they're movable.
Yeah,
How movable, I don't know, but movable. There's movable that could actually stop the tidal. That you could move it by the time the tidal wave comes ashore, and there's movable, which means that you can actually you can uproot it and move it, given a 2-year plan.
I suppose there are small nuclear reactors and stuff, but like Mike points out that there's nuclear waste involved here.
Yeah.
Now they have to have a contingency plan to do something with that nuclear waste. Other countries like Sweden put theirs into a deep mine, a spent mine. So they have a very good plan of what they do with their nuclear waste. They put it underground in old mines, and then they cap the mines, and it's it's good to stay there for thousands of years. But we have to have a similar plan if we are to continue along this way. I don't know what France does with their nuclear waste. I have no idea what they do. They produce a lot more nuclear waste than we do, obviously, because of all the nuclear plants that they have.
Yeah. Well, plus they got twice the population we have.
Yeah. Now the Fukushima problem was the tsunami. It wasn't the earthquake. It was the tsunami.
Yeah, I know.
And it was just bad planning, and that had been pointed out by the Dutch, as we've pointed out here. That some Dutch engineers or whatever pointed out, look, your pumps are too low. You got to bring them up above the possible water level. And that's what caused the problem in Japan.
And actually, the irony about that with Japan is that you think about Japan, from everything we know about Japan, I've watched several documentaries about how they plan around tidal waves, etc. Many valleys in Japan have got markers up the valley that state this is where the tidal wave of 1642 happened. This is where the 1537 one happened, etc., etc. And they've got the markers up the valley, and the high, generally speaking, they don't build lower than those tidal wave, markers. They may use that land for, for agriculture, etc., but they don't build permanent structures down there.
No, I guess not. But the thing that Mike was just putting on there, that the premiers are now doing their independent thing as a kind of answering Trump's threats by being independently active. And what Mike is saying there, like, we have to have a unified voice. The premiers have said
I
that
agree,
too,
but
however,
we don't have an effective prime minister right now.
that's the problem. We don't have a secure central government. Not only do we have a lame duck government, but we have a government that nobody trusts. And they're the ones that we're going to be sending down there to negotiate, at least until the next election. And believe me, Trump would like nothing better than to negotiate with a weak, disparate type of bargaining people. I think all the premiers should be part of the bargaining, or at least send someone in Ontario or Alberta or also to join in this team to represent the interests of the provinces, because otherwise you're not going to get a strong front. They have to go in, but they have to be together.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing. You have to have a united front. So Mike is quite right about that. Donnie Bonespurs has got us all jumping around in hoops, all answering his questions.
Yeah, but again,
willy-nilly here and there. Yeah.
But again, that's why Ford is becoming the strong man in a way. He's becoming the strong man of the United Premiers, isn't he?
Yeah, right from the very beginning, he's saying, you ask, like, you don't think you're going to go after our jobs, are you? Now he does point the finger to Mexico. He says that's your real problem, not us. And then he points his finger to China too, and he says that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's come out straight. He's gone on American television and all of that. And being the largest and most economically versatile province, I think that is probably a good thing. But unfortunately, we don't have a voice. Ford's doing that to protect Ontario jobs, and so I give him the big thumbs up for that.
Yeah.
He sees the tariffs as going to be damaging to Ontario in an incredible way, particularly since all this big investments we've had in electric cars and so on, which is meant to match the upcoming demands in the marketplace. But this could ruin us, and he sees that.
Yeah, but again, Trump has stated this week that the US doesn't need anything from Canada.
Well, yeah, if they want to, the trade networks and the way that the economic systems work and the trade systems work, this is a product of American of American efforts, not other efforts. To say that, okay, we want globalization and we want to put trade out there worldwide and drop barriers to trade, and then suddenly turn around and say, well, we changed our mind. It was your idea to drop the barriers. It was your idea to make the world more trade efficient. I can understand you putting tariffs on people that don't play fair, like China.
Yeah.
It's also interesting to note that China has stepped forward and offered Canada more trade deals, more cooperation. This can't be good. This can't be a good look. The U.S. would hate it, but on the other hand, we don't want to be seen as teammates of China unless we have to really be
Yeah.
teammates.
Yeah.
They're trying to China is trying to get with Canada and Mexico, particularly Canada, and say, look, maybe we can help you out here. Maybe we can have a better trade system, you and us. You don't need the United States as much as you think you do. That's
And I get
exactly
it.
the
It
opposite,
makes
I think,
sense.
what Trump wants to happen.
I get it. It makes sense from the viewpoint of China, because especially since those statements of China over the last 5 years, which have been of utter hatred for everything Chinese.
It's also it's also kind of very interesting because we almost had a trade deal with China, but when we arrested that the Chinese Hu Wei,
What
the daughter of the
Huawei? Yeah,
executive, yeah, that really stirred up the Chinese, and they did a big hate attack to us, and then they took the two Michaels and arrested them and kept them there, and then they had a hate campaign on for Canada, and we were just trying to extradite. We were just obliging the treaty we had with the United States to extradite someone to the United States to face trial, and and they would do the same for us. But the Chinese says, well, in this particular case, we don't want you to do what your law says to do. So they put a big hate campaign on Canada, and that stifled the deal that we were beginning to establish with China. Well, now the Chinese wants that to be reignited. So
yeah,
all of a sudden, we're not the running dog anymore, are we?
yeah.
We're buddies now. The hypocrisy is unbelievable.
Yeah, okay, but Ford has been regularly appearing on American cable news networks. Well, not just cable, but anywhere he can get on the local news, stressing the long-term economic and cultural relations between the Canada and the US. So he's been kind of the diplomat, the trade diplomat here.
It's interesting. I saw when he was on Fox News, I saw a clip on YouTube, and he was the Fox News guy said that they were insulted that they didn't want to be part of the United States. We offered you to be part of the United States. It's a great invitation, and now we're insulted that you don't want to be part of us. And other politicians have said the same thing, that we feel very insulted that we will invite Canada to be part of the United States, and you don't want to be. We feel insulted.
Well,
seriously,
but
they don't have any. If you reversed it, why don't you become part of Canada and you refused us? Would we be insulted?
Yeah, but you see, how many Canadians? I know plenty of pro-Trump conservatives that have been stating in the last few weeks that they don't want any part of Canada becoming 51st state, or 51st to 63rd or something. Given we got 10 provinces and 3 territories.
Well, Paul stated yesterday what we all know. Paul Amir was talking to him yesterday, and he said the transition would be super costly, super confusing.
Yeah,
and it would take years, and the disruption would be incredible. Just remember when East Germany became part of Germany, it was a hellscape for a long time. And when that unification happened, it cost the Germans an incredible amount of money.
And it cost the Germans an incredible amount of money, because essentially pretty well every East German bureaucrat walked out on their job in an instant and left the doors to the establishment wide open. So there was nobody running any bureaucratic issues in East Germany.
It could have been a number of reasons. I don't think that same thing would happen here. I think our bureaucrats would stay put, but the transition would be extremely costly and confusing. This was something that would have to take place over a long period of time. But the whole idea that we are insulted that you snubbed us, that we invited you, we want to marry you, and you don't want to marry us. Oh, I feel so snubbed.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying is that we got so many, even pro-Trump conservatives don't see the merger as a good thing.
No, it's all BS anyways.
Yeah.
So Trump, that's what he does. He pushes and pushes and pushes and sees what happens. It's January 6th in
Well,
everything he does. On January 6th, he motivated that crowd and he sat back to see what would happen. And if they did get into the Congress chamber and they did hang Mike Pence, then he could rightly say, oh, I'm still the president. But if nothing happened, then he's still off the hook. That's what he does. He just keeps pushing to see what happens. He pushes buttons. He prods people. What's going to happen? Let me see which way they dance. And he's a bully. And the more you dance, the more he's going to push you. So every once in a while, you got to turn around and punch him right in the nose so that he knows that it's going to hurt him.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. All right, let's move on. Yep, let's move on from that. So Niagara Falls wastewater plant has violated effluent discharge regulations back in November.
Yes. Unfortunately, this is something we could have anticipated all along. We do know that here in Niagara Falls, we're building a brand new wastewater site up around Rexinja Road there. And I saw plans for it when they had it at McBain Center and when they had sort of a information center there, an information session there. So it was it is a good and very ambitious plan. However, as the article states, that nearly half of our wastewater and nearly half of all of our freshwater facilities are way, way outdated.
Yeah.
They're being held together with chewing gum and wire. And they've been left to rot and degrade without.
Well, actually, the worst of this is that we've got a significant percentage of these plants that are originally 100 or more years old across the region.
Yeah, this is really, really poor planning.
And we're
stuck with the bad planning.
Yeah.
We're stuck with the bad planning of the. Geez, I have to get this article now. Here we go.
Well, I was going to say, in the meanwhile, while you're getting that up, I was doing a bit of research around this, and I noted that about 4 months ago, back in September, back in September of 24, the Niagara Dailies published an article saying Niagara water nightmare was caused by council apathy, and basically that they, as you said, the numbers are startling. 77% of the region's water is delivered by 3 plants that are approximately 100 years old, right? And 49% of the wastewater facilities assets are deemed to be in very poor condition. And that was an article that was lambasting the Niagara region for its inability to make a decision.
Yeah, what they do is they put things off.
Yeah,
put things off. We don't want to spend the money now. We don't want to spend the money now. What we have is coming up is going to be an asset budget for Niagara Falls. We're going to have a discussion about 7.6% increase in taxes, things like that. And why do you think why do you suddenly get these large increases? Is because they put things off at a different time to say, oh, look, we've reduced your taxes. What they really did is they just put off things that they had to do. Now we're with wastewater and we have to spend the money and we have to get it done and we're behind. and we're dumping toxic effluent into the, well, in this particular case, they were dumping it into the hydro canal.
Yeah.
So when they dump that dirty water into the hydro canal, and then it goes through the generators, is that now dirty energy?
Yeah. Okay. So this is in the current wastewater treatment plant, isn't it? The one that's actually on Stanley Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they, like I said, it's extremely outdated, and the workers there have to figure out different ways of doing things as best they can. And they're breaking down all the time, and they're trying to figure out different solutions, how they can do things stopgap. The truth of it is that these sites are well overdue, both clean water and wastewater sites, and it's because the region has put it off for as long as it has. So it's been bad management by the region. I would like to have seen some regional councilors be wise enough some years ago to say, look, we got to get this done. It's going to be a problem, and they can't put it off any longer. It's not like in the old days where they could keep dumping waste into the water and saying, oh, well, there's nothing else we could do about it at this time because we don't have the money. This is priorities that are stressed by the government, the environmental aspects of the government, both federally and provincially, as you've got to keep your act together.
Yeah, and in fact, when it comes down to it, there's been a number of articles criticizing the Niagara region and their wastewater treatment plants. 2023, there's been articles. 22, there was other articles. Back in 2019, it was an issue, and as early as 2012, I've seen.
Yeah, so this is an ongoing thing, and there really isn't not much that we can do except continue along with the projects, the upgrades that are going on right now. But if you're going to fast track anything, that's the thing you should fast track. But if you do, it's going to cost you a lot more money. So this is the situation when you have bad governance. When you want to keep the taxes down to look good for everyone, and you cut the taxes in places that shouldn't be cut, you can almost imagine the regional councilors putting this off all the time, putting it off all the time. If we want to save money, we won't go ahead with these projects, and we'll put it off and put it off and put it off. Well, what happens when you do that? Then you have to pay the piper later on. And now we're dumping effluent into the water, toxic effluent into the water. And it's not going to get any better because we don't, until those new places are put together, it's not going to have, it's just not going to, here, finally got the article. So yeah, it says here, like 44% of its water plant assets and 49% of its wastewater plant assets are in poor to very poor condition. So why did it get that bad?
Yeah,
that's bad governance.
But then again,
you have to have people on the council that has a little bit of foresight.
Yeah. Then again, well, I'll be honest about it. I did say to you that I'd been finding articles that are going back to 2012 at least on this issue, but not all of the complaints are actually. There's many other areas, not just Niagara, that have water and wastewater problems.
And here's Bradley. He says, when we are asked why are we allocating so many dollars to this particular area, it is not frivolous. It's not something wishful. It is something we are compelled to do. I think some people believe that somehow this is an optional on our part. Well, it was optional on their part in years past. It's no longer optional because those people that told you that the plant was getting old and had to be replaced, and you decided not to do it 15 years ago instead of now, then you have nobody to blame but yourself. We don't have to invest the money in this. People think we don't have to invest the money, so there you go. You still get the pushback. Hey, we only have so much money. How come we're putting so much into water and wastewater? It's because you didn't put the money into it before.
Yeah.
You got to pay. You got to pay.
And the part of the problem is that if back in 2012 you didn't spend $1 million, now you have to spend $5 million to do that same piece of work.
Here you go again. And this is unfortunately the cities, whether it comes to their service trucks or wherever else they or their other equipment. You talk to the guys that work sometimes out in the field. Despite ongoing repair and maintenance efforts, the report said that the plant's treatment efficiency fell by an average of 30%. The region has an upgrade project underway to replace the secondary equipment in Niagara Falls with an expected completion date of this spring, not too soon. Until then, wastewater staff will add polymer and primary and secondary clarifiers to optimize the settling of solids, which they will then remove. So the problem is they have to come up with solutions that because their equipment can't bear up to the demands on them, that they have to come up with other solutions like putting polymers in it. That might not be all that good either. And then the report said deteriorating the exact cause of acute toxicity can be challenging. Samples generally register as toxic due to excess ammonia, poor effluent quality, and chemical usage either in the plant or upstream. So when your equipment breaks down, then you start running around trying to, if we do a little bit of this or a little bit of that. And being a millwright and in factories and all that have issues with old and beat up equipment, I can tell you that it is massively frustrating, and you pay a lot more keeping beat up old equipment going than you do by buying new. And there is that point that your car can be repaired basically to a point, and then after that it has to be turned in. I came to that point with my van, right? There was no point in going after it and repair it anymore, because I would just have to keep repairing it. So it's time to bite the bullet and get another car. Well, the same thing with any kind of equipment. And the problem with the city or the council, these guys have never turned a wrench or pushed a broom, most of them. So they don't understand that kind of thing. They get bean counters, and the bean counter says, well, we could spend $80,000 fixing that piece of equipment, and we could spend $80,000 again next year and $80,000 again next year instead of buying a new piece of equipment for $200,000, not have to repair it for 10 years.
Yeah. And just Mike Cushman saying just 2 months ago, the MECP warned Niagara wastewater treatment because it killed 60% of the fish in that area.
Yeah, just when they test
just a warning for 60% of the fish. Yes, absolutely.
Just as a bit of information, when they test the water, they use rainbow trout. And so they expose rainbow trout to the effluent, and if half of them die, then it is deemed toxic. And that's exactly what's happened in this last case.
Right. We're doing a film on this as we can prove they are dumping in the lakes through the hydro canal.
That's exactly what they're doing. And that's what it says in the article too.
Yeah.
They dump in. That's why I said, if you dump the toxic water, the dirty water into the hydro canal, and then it goes to the reservoir and makes electrical power, is it now dirty power?
And okay, Mike Cushman's going to be radical here, and he says we got to stop building homes if we can't treat the waste. And I get it. I get where you're coming from, Mike. Absolutely, yeah. I get where you're coming from. Basically, actually, there's an issue for you. that's exactly why we need development funds coming to our local cities, because if the developer needs to pay a proportion of money, I'm not saying that you're going to be charged tens of thousands of dollars because you build a new house, right? But each new development has a contribution to making new wastewater plants in the future, and that's a fund that should be consistently and building.
Well, now they're talking about reducing that development fee to jumpstart houses. So it's catch-22 in Mike's scenario.
Yeah. I know.
We need more houses, but we can't build them because we can't treat their waste. So the more houses you build, the more waste you have, the less waste you can deal with. So the less houses you should build.
Yeah.
The development funds and that. However, they say that the new plant here is going to be up and running in the spring. It has been being built for some time right now, so we can only hope that prediction is true. But still, the rest of the region has a similar problem. How long can we go?
And if that new plant does come online in the spring, that's great. That doesn't mean to say we need to get rid of the old plant. It just needs to take some of the load away from the old plant.
The old plant's just about useless right now. It is just too
old.
But
they need to what they need to do is refresh it, rebuild it, and keep it going. Get it going.
They would have to do a study to see if that's worth doing that. The first thing they'd have to do is now direct the sewage to the new sewage treatment plant.
Yeah.
And we're just talking about just the sewage plant. We're not talking about the water facilities that are also have a century old. So first of all, let's talk about the waste, because that's the more important one. So once that new plant is up and running and the sewage is directed there, you may be able to recondition the one you have already in existence if it is cost efficient to do so. The new
plant
replace
it,
even. New plant is supposed to be able to run for a very long time and have enough capacity to deal with the expansion of the city. So in Mike's scenario, you can build new houses once this thing gets going, because it'll have the capacity to take on all the new poo.
Okay. So here we go. I love this article when you brought it up. Welland Canal Lock 7 gates are replaced by century-old ones. And you go, how can that happen? And basically what it is that they actually have been storing these lock gates in the actual canal itself. So these are basically been stored under the water for quite some time. It's taken them a year to actually have these gates, float them back up from underground, basically just bring them
back. Took a year and a half to recondition them.
And bring them back to actually being able to be used, and actually now make them up and prepare them as new lock gates for Lock 7. Wow.
Yeah.
The fortitude of putting that in place 100 years ago, and the thinking about how we replace them today. Brilliant.
Yeah, the problem I have with the article is it doesn't expand on that. It doesn't tell you where on the bottom of the canal these
that's what I wanted to know.
Stored. Yeah. It doesn't tell you what it took to recondition them, only that it was reconditioned. So if you think, I've worked on the canal, I've worked on those big on the motors that open and close those gates. I've worked on that and the motors and all kinds of things in and around those gates. So when I think of the massiveness of those gates, and I think of myself, they were stored on the bottom of the canal and then being brought up to be reconditioned and used. To me, that's an amazing thing. But how was that possible? Who did that planning and all that? The article is just very superficial. Oh, there was these old gates at the bottom of the canal. They picked them up, cleaned them up, and now they're putting them back in. They're 100 years old. Well, oh, come on, give me some more.
Yeah, I know, I know.
Who
And in
planned to put
fact,
them there in the first place? What did it take to recondition them? Those things are massive. I know. I've
well,
walked across them basically.
yeah, there's a group on Facebook called Ship Junkies, Lakes, Locks, and Rivers that are talking about this particular thing. But again, most of those people, being aficionados of that kind of stuff, are saying, crying out for more information about this.
Yeah. Obviously, whoever wrote the article is just putting down what he's being told and not got curious enough to figure out why that is, or maybe they just didn't have enough space in the paper that
So
day or whatever.
you think you've walked across the top of these lock gates?
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when they're closed, there's walkways across them. I've walked across them. Damn, those things are 90 to 100 feet tall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. What I mean is, you not at the bottom of not the old ones at the bottom of the canal.
Well, I haven't walked across them. No, they've been there for 100 years.
Well, you probably, if they were put in silt, if they were in the silt, you probably wouldn't even know they were there, would you?
What is curious to me is what it appears in the article that they've been submerged at the bottom of the canal. They're made of metal and wood.
Yeah.
So how is it they were able to keep them there? Did they coat them with tar or some kind of coating to put them down there so they didn't rust?
Don't know.
If you said like they buried them in silt, they would be somewhat protected against oxidization. But
yeah,
there's a whole lot of, and then they talk about the huge equipment that has come in and the auxiliary equipment with it, these big cranes that have been lifting them up, got them up. They didn't tell them where these were reconditioned. I don't know who's doing this job. I would love to be there. I worked on a canal. I had 7 sort of tours of duty on the canal over my 25 years as a millwright. And so I was in the shutdowns and rehab of the canal, like I said, at least 7 times. And I want to know who did the work and reestablishing the canal.
it would have been lovely to have gotten that kind of detail. I'm sorely annoyed that we didn't get that kind of detail, because that's always the kind of thing. Is like, how did they treat them? Because obviously they pulled them up a year ago. They've been treating them for the past year to prepare them for installation, but they haven't told us how.
No, they didn't know. Yeah, which makes me thirsty for questions. I can understand the immenseness of these gates. So if there was one that they could use or fix up when they needed it, that would be a good thing. And these things are incredibly big. So of course, storing them on the bottom of the canal wouldn't be a bad idea. It's just, to me, is how did they survive down there, and how were they reconditioned? To make a new canal door gate would be hugely expensive, because they're a massive thing.
Yeah. Okay, so it says here, in somebody's did some work in that same Facebook group. Spare gates for the Welland Canal are stored by submerging them below Lock 1. I heard there's basically a sign there that says spare gates berthed beneath, do not enter this area, right? So this person said he asked about the sign warning boaters not to enter the area near the pilot house, and then he noticed that they were floating them. This is a few, quite a way back, right? And he done some research into this, and apparently they've been there for quite some time, is from what he was saying. And the ones currently being floated will be refurbished for Fox Dock and scheduled to be replaced the existing gates on Lock 7 starting January 5th, 2025.
I done a lot of work on Lock 7 myself.
Yeah.
Done a work there.
Yeah. Well, so that's probably more information in that short snippet than I got out of the article itself.
I spent I think 3 months and probably in Lock 7 and Lock 7 auxiliary units. Oh God, I remember that because we had to we had to use chain falls to lift up the counterweights and replace the stuff inside the counterweights with other stuff. Big cargo. Yeah, that was a lot of heavy work. And then crawl down and replace the strut between the chains and the gates. I remember that job, and that was quite a thing. I had to go down there. Whoa, man! It's cold. It's dark. You got to go down these wire rung ladders, and then you got to go out on the lattice work, and then try to pin the strut on this gigantic chain onto the gate. I remember having to do that, and I remember thinking the safety here is shit, but I got it done.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. It's kind of that's a sciencey thing that I thought was there. Right. Then you got this one. You were talking about new travel options, right? Which came. Oh no, hang on. Okay, we can do the new travel options. Got this the wrong way around. Okay.
Well, this is just a curiosity piece, basically. I thought I kind of threw this in there.
No, I know that. Yeah. Okay, so a curiosity piece by the BBC about 7 new travel trends that are coming up, and one of the ones that are interesting, calmcations. Nocturnal tourism, noctourism, nighttime travel experiences, right?
So
for the first 2.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the article now. How long ago did I post?
Travel meets AI. I'm not so. Hey, forget that one. AI is just the latest trend in everything, right? The return of the holiday romance. Yeah, interesting. Off the beaten track goes mainstream.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the article. I know I put it up there. Oh, here, this must be the one here.
BBC.
Yeah, I posted it, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Where the hell did I put it?
The other one is nostalgia travel. 90s music icons Oasis and Eminem followed Taylor Swift's lead to disrupt the travel industry. Pop star is credited with boosting travel and tourism around the world during her Eras tour, which concluded in December 2024. Well, hey, I ain't gonna do anything because Taylor Swift went there.
Well, the article, like I've read it a few days ago, of course, but the article points out that people tend to travel in trends. They like to follow trends.
Yeah.
Well, like everybody wants to see the Eiffel Tower, basically. So you can see that would be a continuous trend. Paris is a trendy place to go.
Yeah, always has been, always will be. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But what gets me with this is when you got places like Gaza being eviscerated, like smashed to pieces, we're all now wondering what kind of Taylor Swift type of vacation we're going to have. When we see that we have homeless people on the street and we're trying to figure out we're going to have romance vacations and things like that, that tells me about the disparity in this world and in our own country. So when we're trying to think for things like noctourism, when we go out at night, or calmcations, where you go for a vacation based on tranquility, or we go to travel meets AI, and what's the other one here? There's a bunch more the return of the holiday romance, like you just put out. The off the beaten track goes mainstream. Well, yeah. So we want to go off the beaten track because other travelers have done that. And now we want
I've
to be.
always done that. I've always done that. I've always been off the beaten track. I never, for example, everybody I knew in England, oh, we're going to Marbella this year. Yeah. Sorry, Marbella, up yours. I'm not going. Not now, not ever, because I don't want to be associated with the British lager louts who went there.
Well, I'm the same. Anytime I go to Queenston, I don't just go to the dock. I go to other places.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I don't want to go to the place. It came to the point where I mentioned there the British lager lout. It's like, okay, so my first thought, if I wanted to go on holiday somewhere, was let's look up British lager. My modern thing would be look up British lager louts and that holiday destination on Google.
Now, here's something I wanted to go to Uzbekistan myself, but here it's actually pointed out specifically in this particular article. Other destinations for the year are a little more off the traditional tourist map. Trail Finders names Uzbekistan as one of the top places to visit. That kind of bums me out because I thought I was unique wanting to go to Uzbekistan all on my own.
That's an interesting place to go.
Zanzibar and Madagascar. Those are places I also wanted to go. So those are supposed to be off the beaten track types, but they're a little bit more mainstream now.
Oh, they're becoming more and more mainstream over the last 20 years. Zanzibar and Madagascar are both, basically the film Madagascar spiked it into most people's consciousness, and actually that island has been almost. You can only go there by, joining a tour party now.
Well, I had planned to do that. I actually was searching for one, but they had an outbreak of bubonic plague when I was making my plans some years ago. So that was off. Yeah. And then, of course, COVID happened. And I also wanted to go to Ethiopia, but now they're still fighting. They got a civil war going on there again.
Yeah.
So, so going to these places, that's good for places like Madagascar and Zanzibar and places like that. Zanzibar already had a pretty good pretty good tourist thing going on. Zanzibar is where Freddie Mercury came from. He was a Zoroastrian, Persian Zoroastrian from Zanzibar that made his way to Britain. And then became a world famous singer.
Yeah, absolutely. Whose name was nothing like Freddie Mercury.
No, it was
brilliant marketing turn. Absolutely. And
I wonder if you go to Stone Town, they'll have a plaque. This is where Freddie Mercury was born. This is where well, Zanzibar was most known for as being a slave port back in the day.
Yeah, there's a plaque in Ealing where you lived. I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, definitely. There's a plaque in Ealing.
Is there one in Stone Town in Zanzibar?
I haven't. I do not have do not know.
For those who don't know, Stone Town is the capital of Zanzibar.
Yeah, and Zanzibar is part of Tanzania.
Tanzania, yeah. It used to be an independent, but it was easier for them to become part of Tanzania. So if you go to Zanzibar, you can also take in Tanzania, which must be fascinating.
Well, and Tanzania is actually a place that's having a resurgence because Tanzania, for quite some time, was almost isolated. It didn't like letting foreigners in.
Well, that's before they knew who I was.
In the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, it was very much an isolated country.
Well, yeah, you have a lot of countries that have. Remember that these countries were made by the British or other European colonists, and what they did was they made countries that weren't natural countries. They overlapped tribes, they overlapped nations, they overlapped languages. So you have different family groups, different tribes. Look, even in Ethiopia, which is an ancient kingdom, there are four main ethnic groups there. It's amazing that country even had become a nation and was never colonized. But part of the reason why it probably wasn't is because it had already learned to coexist somewhat with the four different main ethnic groups that are in the country. But the artificial countries that were made up by the British and other colonists, like Kenya and Tanzania, were not natural countries.
No.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like Iraq. I mean, Iraq has the swamp Arabs in the south who are Shia. They have the Sunni Arabs in the middle, and then they have the Kurds in the north.
Well,
so you have
exactly.
these three main
exactly. And for example, Kenya, there's a lot of difference between the coastal tribes, the coastal and the Arab influence upon the coastal region that had nothing to do with the tribes up country. They're completely different. In fact, Kenya could be broken up in between the coastal tribes and the upland tribes, which are in Kenya and Uganda, which have got, those tribes across the Kenya-Uganda border have got more commonality than the tribes across the, to the coast.
Well, the capital of Tanzania, it has a Arabic name, doesn't it?
Dar es Salaam.
Dar es Salaam, yeah.
Yeah.
House of Islam.
Yeah. And actually, that is actually was a regional center for the Swahili Empire, the Omani Empire down there.
Well, yeah, it was. Sadly, it was. Dar es Salaam was also a really big slave port. Ivory and ivory, gold, and other things that come from.
Oh, absolutely, but again, and Dar es Salaam is people think of many of these cities like Mombasa and Dar es Salaam as being fairly new. Mombasa's 1,100 years old.
Right? Oh yeah.
And Dar es Salaam likewise, but I don't know the exact date of Dar es Salaam, but I know it's not new.
Well, we here we forget what a flourishing trade network that the Arabs had on the east coast of Africa. They had a huge flourishing trade network. As a matter of fact, a lot of Jews went along the trips because they had a very powerful presence in Yemen. And so when you get the different Jewish groups in Africa, the unusual ones like the Falashan Jews of Ethiopia and the Lamba Jews of Din around South Africa, you think, where the hell did these people come from? Well, it's because of Jewish traders that followed the Arabs down there and established little colonies.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about rogue waves.
Rogue waves. Well, I was gonna. Well, I didn't read the article so thoroughly, so I'll have to do it next week. But I do know about rogue waves. Rogue waves are a thing that will come on to, now it's been a little while since I read it, but is a wave that is out of order with the rest of them. Somehow, in the chaos of the oceans, a great swell. Now, when you think of big waves, when you think of big waves coming, you think of them as a weather, and one big wave is following another big wave is following another big wave. So when you have a storm coming, you expect big waves, a hurricane or anything else, and you expect successive waves coming along. However, a rogue wave is different altogether. You don't expect it. There is no weather condition that's causing it. It is, so you're going along and you're sailing, and all of a sudden a giant wave comes out of nowhere and breaks over your sailboat or your freight ship. These are things that just happen probably to the chaos of the ocean. They are not typical of what the rest of the water is. So if you're on the sea and you're sailing and you have normal seas, the undulating seas, and all of a sudden a giant wave comes after you. Now, if you, like I said before, if you're heading into a storm, you expect big waves, one after the other after the other. But the thing with rogue waves is they surprise you because
Well, they
all of a
double.
sudden
They
you have this
double up.
giant wave
Yeah.
come across, and it isn't caused by the weather, so you don't have any idea to expect it or prepare for it.
Yeah, and also the other one about rogue waves is I watched this documentary about the Edmund Fitzgerald, the freighter that was sank in Lake Superior in 1975. And the Edmund Fitzgerald basically, there's yes, it was badly maintained ship, but even with a badly maintained ship, where they hadn't locked down the hatches properly, it should still not have gone down. And part of what they believe what happened there is a rogue wave.
No, that was a gale situation. So you could expect huge waves. So the captain and crew would have had to have expected the huge waves. What happened? I know a guy that worked the ships, and the guys who batten down the hatches take a shortcut a lot of times, and they partially bolt them down, and they take a shortcut because it's easier to pull off and pull back down again. They probably didn't get out there fast enough to make sure that the hatches were bolted down well enough. What happened was those opened up, and they had
I know.
They had a
yeah, but you see,
they had they were shipping iron ore,
Yeah.
which is very heavy. And once
Very
the water
heavy,
got
yeah.
in there with the iron ore, then there was no saving the ship.
But again, a lot of what they were saying is that a lot of the exploration that one of these documentaries did was actually about rogue waves, even in the Great Lakes system.
Well, they were in a storm situation, a gale wind. So,
Yeah,
like they should have been prepared for any kind of wave,
yeah,
big and small, because of the weather condition. The rogue waves that they're normally talking about here are ones that come out of nowhere. You can expect huge waves in a storm. You're supposed to.
You probably should expect huge waves in a storm, because
Well,
as
you
I
absolutely have
understand
to
it,
prepare for
how
it.
those rogue waves occur is that they've kind of got, it's like compounding, like a tsunami, where you get the earthquake at the center of the ocean. You get with rogue waves, it's not tsunami like, but you get some effect that causes an upswell way out, that when it comes to landfall, these rogue waves become much larger.
Yeah, it's kind of like well, tsunami is a good example. Tsunami is basically one big wave.
Well,
A couple of big
tsunami
waves.
is a rogue wave, right? It's the worst kind of rogue wave there is.
Yeah,
But we know it's
it has a identifiable source. So
Yeah.
if you're out in the ocean and there's been an earthquake 1,000 miles away, and this caused a tsunami to come, yeah, that's like a giant rogue wave. But some of these don't have a identifiable source. The rogue wave is characterized as one that's at least 2.5 times larger than the average wave around it, and they can be deadly and catch people by surprise. They can happen when sea swells collide and merge to create a bigger wave. So
and the example that they paint here was that on a relaxing day on the Mexican beach in Sayulita, Mexico, with his girlfriend having tacos on the beach, then all of a sudden the rogue wave comes in and hits them.
Now, the problem with when you have a tsunami, you can track it. So you have an earthquake or you have some other thing that causes it. So you know you're going to get a tsunami. But a lot of these rogue waves cannot be tracked. And it says here, though the number of rogue waves is difficult to quantify, no organization tracks them or injuries from them. Mintz is far from the only one who experienced their power. One of the largest ever recorded rogue waves was just off the coast of BC. So they come out of nowhere. And of course, it talks about Noah Mintz, who sits in a wheelchair outside a hospital in Mexico after being hit by what was likely a rogue wave. So even if you do know that, let's say you're swimming on the seashore, right? And you're sort of surfing in on the different waves that come after you, or you go swimming, you'll notice every once in a while there's a real big one. Where the hell did that come from? And
Yeah.
but that's minor, but you could kind of get the
Yeah,
idea
but
there.
in fact, actually, that
You're
is
expecting a certain kind of wave and a certain kind of size, and then at one point, the current going back out hits the current coming back in, and it goes higher. And it doesn't happen all the time, and it's unusual, it's infrequent, but it really does take you by surprise.
but
And that's just on
the
shore.
surfers often look out for those type of larger waves, don't they? Because they can do more spectacular, acts as they come in on the surfboard.
Yeah,
But they're not.
and
I don't know that they're necessarily rogue waves, because in fact, it's the rogue wave that when it hits the beach does a lot more damage.
well, it says here about this fella Mintz. His neck was broken in 2 places, along with some scrapes and cuts. After surgery and a few months of rehabilitation, he was able to make a full recovery, aside from minor nerve damage to his left side. So there's a guy that's just along the shore, and he gets beat up by a rogue wave.
Yeah.
So uh, here talks about another person, Mary McNutt, Tacey Norder, and another friend were on vacation in Mexico, 2023. They just arrived, and these people were 66 and 70 at the time. Wanted to go for a swim. There were some waves, so a pair of them decided to move down the beach to find a calmer area. But a large wave started coming their way, and the wave was an aberration. It was a monster wave, and where did it come from? Who knows?
Yeah.
It was 4 meters tall, and so there you go. You had to make a run for it.
Yeah.
So, like I said, like before, like you talk about these giant waves, like a tsunami can be tracked, because you have a disturbance that causes it. But these other ones, they don't have a predictable source, and they don't have a predictable timing. So if you're out there sailing, you have to watch out for things like rogue waves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know the tsunami that hit the Indian Ocean a while back. Well, apparently when that hit, it did disaster on the Indian coast and the Asian coast. But when that hit the African coast, it was basically it brought a lot of debris with it and dumped debris on the beaches in Africa. But it was only about 1 meter tall at that point.
Yeah, it displaced. And if a lot of these, what people don't understand is you could go over a tsunami, like you could be sailing and there'd be a bump, basically a higher wave, not that much higher, and it'd be a bump. But that when it that wave starts to get closer to shore, it builds because it's shallower underneath.
Yeah.
And then the wave builds and builds and is very high.
But again, what happened on the African coast, it didn't hit. It was only about 1 meter higher than normal waves at that point.
I talked to a guy in Thailand, or no, it was Laos, and he was working in Thailand as helping construct a resort right on the seashore.
Yeah.
And he said he had a stroke, and he says it was a stroke of luck, because he had a stroke and had to go to the hospital. And a few days after he went to the hospital, the tsunami hit the resort that he was working on and killed everybody there.
Yeah.
So he would have been dead. So he called his stroke a stroke of luck.
Yeah, I get it. All right. I think we can kind of call it a day at that point.
All right. Without further ado, I bid you do not forget Gaza. 46,000 people dead. 46,000. That nightmare continues.
Yeah,
Pray for
absolutely.
peace.